Hello P6, we have made it to Friday and we have made it to the end of this half term. So for our final maths lesson of this half term, well, let's have a little bit of fun today and perhaps do something a little bit more artistic. To start off today for our mental maths warm up, we're going to do our next door numbers. So don't forget, in next door numbers, what we have to do is add the two next door numbers together and then write the total above it. So in the first grade that I can see here, if I've got 26 and 8, then I have to begin by adding those two numbers. So 26 plus 8, that's going to be 34. I write the answer in there. Then I work out 8 plus 25, then 25 plus 9. Write my answers in and work my way up to the top of the grid. Now there are two levels to choose from P6, so you can either choose the higher level or you can choose a slightly easier lower level. There's also a 100 square there to help you out if you get stuck. Now today's main activity is going to be all about area and perimeter. A quick reminder of what we've already been learning about. We have learned that area is the amount of surface covered by a shape. We have learned that area has to be measured in squares, and we've also learned that to find the area of a rectangle or square, we use area equals length times breadth. But that only works for rectangles and squares. So area is all to do with the surface. We have also looked at perimeter, and we have been learning a little bit about perimeter already this week, and we have remembered that perimeter is all to do with the distance around the outside of the shape. That we measure it in units, that might be in centimetres or metres or kilometres. And to find the perimeter of a rectangle or a square, we add the length and the breadth together and then we multiply our answer by 2. Now today's activity is all based around something that's happening on Sunday, because Sunday is what's called Valentine's Day. And on Valentine's Day, lots of people like to make a fuss of the people that they love. So we're going to do a Valentine's Day themed bit of work today for area and perimeter. On the page, you can see that you have got 4 letters that together spell out the word love. So I've got L-O-V-E. Now you can see that those letters have been written on a squared grid. And what we're going to do today is we're going to see if we can take each letter separately and can we work out the area and the perimeter of each individual letter. So you've got the letter, and then underneath it you've got a space to work out its area and a space to work out its perimeter. Now, none of these shapes are squares or rectangles. So what we are going to do to work out the area, well, there's 2 ways that we could go about working out the area. The easiest way perhaps would be just to count the squares. So if I was looking at the letter L and I wanted to work out how big the area was of this shape, what I could simply start doing is counting the squares. I might dot them or I might write the numbers in, but I'm simply trying to work out how many squares there are all together. So if I've got as far as 6, I could just keep going, put a number in every square, and that will be my area. That would work for L, and that would work for E. Another way you could think of it, perhaps if we look at the letter E, well, what I could do is I could take the letter E and maybe I could block it off into different rectangles. I might want to work out the area of this big rectangle because it's 3 across and you can count how many it is going up. And there's a smaller rectangle, and a smaller rectangle there. So perhaps you might want to break it up into smaller rectangles. But for L and E, you can either count the squares or break it up into rectangles and see if you can work it out that way. Now for the letter O and the letter V, they're a little bit more tricky. And the reason they're a little bit more tricky is because, well, there are lots of full squares, but there are some squares that are not full squares. They might be about half a square, they might be more than half, they might be less than half. So if I was looking at the letter O, well, first of all, to work out the area, I would count all the full squares. And it's probably easiest just to write the numbers in the full squares. So take your pencil or your pen and go and start writing your numbers in the squares that are full squares. Once you've done that, look at the squares that you haven't written a number in. If the square is half or more, keep going with your numbers. So for example, if you can see that square there, beside where I've written 6, it's almost a full square. So I would keep going with my numbers. So let's say if the last number I had got to in the full squares was 70, and it's not, but if it was, then I would then choose to put 71 in there. And I might put 72 in there, and so on. So you're trying to keep going with the numbers. If it's half or more, keep going with your numbers. And that's for O, and that's for V. So L and E, count the squares or break it up into squares and rectangles. O and V, write the numbers in the full squares, and then the squares that are half or more, keep going with your numbers. Can you work out the area of each letter? For perimeter, again, O and E are going to be really easy. So to work out L and E is going to be easy. O and V, a little bit harder. To work out L, well, perimeter is the distance around the outside edge. So decide where you're going to start. And I like to put a mark where I'm going to start. So I'm going to work out the perimeter of my letter L. So I can see it's 3 squares going across. How many is it going down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It's 15 squares going down. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares going across. 3 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 across. And how many going up? Now I'm going to guess it's 18, because it should be 15 and 3. Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 going back up. And then what I could do is I could either add that up in my head, or like we were doing yesterday with the calculator. Was it yesterday? Maybe Wednesday with the calculator. Get your calculator out and add together those numbers. So to work out the perimeter, you're adding up around the outside edge. Now that will be easy for L, and that will be easy for E. For O and V, with these slightly slanted lines, with these diagonal lines, what you'll need to do is, again, just count the squares. So if I was looking at this line here, I would say it's 1, 2, 3 lines, or 3 squares long, and 3. So the area, when you go to write it down, your answer will be in squares. They're not centimetre squares, so we're not writing centimetre squared. We're just going to write squares. And for the perimeter, because they aren't centimetre squares, we're just going to write units. So today, P6, your challenge is to work out or determine the area and perimeter of each of these letters. If you do it in pencil, then once you're finished, what I would love you to do is do some artwork. Can you decorate each letter? They've suggested on the page you might use polka dots, squiggly lines, stripes, solid shapes. Be creative. So could you decorate your page as much as you can? Maybe you might want to put some shading onto it, perhaps to make it look more 3D. Why don't you give it a go, and then you could email a photograph of that to your teacher. We would really love to see it. So your main activity today is area and perimeter, looking at these 4 letters that make up the word love. Once you've got all that done, P6, why don't you finish your maths for today by either going to Prodigy and having a go at some of the activities on Prodigy, or perhaps go back to Education City. And as this is the last day to have a go at getting onto our Play Live leaderboard, perhaps you could make it onto one of the Play Live maths leaderboards today. Whether it's for adding, subtracting, multiplying or dividing, it would be wonderful to see your name on at least one of those leaderboards. Have a lovely day, P6. And enjoy your half term. You deserve a week off. You've worked so hard. Well done. And we'll see you when we come back after half term. Bye.